Hi. Are we good?
Can you hear us?
We're
Hi.
streaming and we can hear you, so y'all can get started.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Lara, and this is Stacey, and we are so excited to be with you today. This is an exciting topic. We've been sitting here just sharing ideas for the last hour or so, and we are thrilled to share that with you. My background professionally, I've been in industrial and organizational psychology and HR for most of my career. And so counseled people at a lot of different places in their career lives. And then I've taught yoga and Pilates since 2010. So have tried to work on how to coach the mind and the body together as one. And so that's me.
And I'm Stacey Bailey. I have had a private practice for about 11 years now. And before that, I worked in different community mental health arenas. And so I've been in mental health since about 2004. And Laura and I have just been talking about different ways that we can feel more balanced and grounded during these times that feel so polarized. We're trying to find a middle ground and how to take small steps every day to feel healthier and feel like we can keep going and not just being on autopilot trying to survive everything, but we can actually find grace and we can find balance and we can find joy even during a time that's so stressful and difficult.
Yes. So what we have decided to do, we want it to be somewhat interactive. We're going to start with a short meditation that's based on the Serenity Prayer. And it's something that you can do anytime throughout your day because of it's such a short, manageable meditation. And then after that, we just thought we would go through kind of a discussion and share some tips and what Stacey's seen in her practice, as well as things that you can include in your daily life. So we'll start with this meditation. This is, as I said, based on the Serenity Prayer. And if you want at home, you can sit in a comfortable position. Usually we meditate seated, and then your hands on the knees. If you want to feel more grounded, it's palms down. If you want to have a more open and receptive meditation, we'll sit with the palms up. And then just close your eyes. And I'm just going to play it from here. If I can find it. Okay.
This segment is entitled Serenity Prayer. It is based on the 12 steps prayer, which many of you are probably familiar with. It was given to me by one of my teachers. Allow the words to be comfortable for you. And if anything is not comfortable, feel free to just go for what the feeling is behind the words. Again, this is all about what works for you. So once again, just allow yourself to find a posture that you can be comfortable in for the next few minutes. And allow yourself to just come into your body. Just becoming aware of any noises in the environment. Just allowing them to be. Allowing yourself to feel grounded inside your body. Feet supported by the ground. A chair or sofa supporting you. Your back resting against the back of the chair. Letting yourself receive this prayer. I accept that which I cannot change. I cannot change my past. I cannot change a single event of my past. I cannot change my parents, my children, my husband or wife, my boss, the people I work with, my friends, my brothers and sisters, none of my relatives. I accept them as they are, where they are. They are doing the best they can, and I am doing the best I can. I accept this gracefully. I am open to change what I can change, that which I have the freedom to change, my actions, my responses. I accept all of my feelings, my reactions, my anger, my fear, my guilt, my aches, my pains, my doubts, my confusion. I am not in offense, nor am I in defense. I allow myself to feel validated that wherever I am, whatever I am feeling in this moment, in this place, that I am okay. That wherever I am protected and loved unconditionally. I am embraced by an ocean of grace. My parents, my child, my significant other, my friends, my colleagues, my relatives, my siblings may not be able to validate or understand me, but I always understand me, and I validate myself. I offer myself my own unconditional love and acceptance. I soak myself in this self-acceptance, in this self-validation, so that I am at ease, no defense, no offense. And from this space, I can act with clarity and with wisdom. So just allow yourself to soak in this self-acceptance, knowing you are loved unconditionally. Take your time, your own pace. When you're ready, you can gently start to become aware of your surroundings. Just the contact of your feet with the ground, your seat with the seat of the chair, your back resting against the back of the chair. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
So I hope that you guys like that. That is one that I tend to do when I'm stressed a lot. I will just keep it on my phone and play it periodically throughout the day. So we're going to take some time, and Stacey's going to share with us some of what she's seeing in her practice, some of the trends that she's seeing with her clients, and how we can find our middle way during the pandemic.
So I guess I want to start with, it's been interesting to see patterns that I've experienced in both my personal life and in my practice for the past 6 months. I've seen a lot of collective stages of grief through this whole thing, and a lot of my sessions tended to have the same theme throughout the different weeks. In the beginning, lots of fear. Everybody was afraid, on the same page, wanted to do everything they could to make this okay. And then it became, I'm all very bored, I'm angry I have to do this. And then it became, I don't know how to accept this, I don't want to do this, I'm starting to get depressed. And then I started seeing a lot of polarized stuff where people would tend to go, I'm going to avoid and pretend like this isn't going on. And then I saw a lot of my clients getting really stuck in fear and not knowing how to get out of that emotion. And what I've been trying to work with both is trying to bring it both to the middle, to find a way to control, like in our meditation, just controlling what we can every day and accepting that this is bigger than what we would like for it to be, but that we can have moments of controlling our breath, our thoughts, what we need to do to just take a baby step to get to a place where we can be calm in moments throughout the day and not just be on autopilot, living out of fear or avoiding. I don't know, what are you feeling?
I mean, I see the same in the exercise and fitness world as well. What Stacey talked about at the beginning, everybody kind of froze. And then as the pandemic went on, people either stayed in their homes and hibernated and abandoned all their practical fitness tips and their grounding practices, or they would take on these crazy sort of like unique fitness goals. Like I have a friend that bulked 20 pounds of muscle in the last 2 months. And I have another friend that's training for like ultra marathons and hasn't ever run before. And so again, like how do we, and that's healthy for those people at this moment, but I don't know if that's the best way for most of us to handle this. And so it's how can we find the middle way in our bodies and our minds and our behaviors. So, but I loved what you were saying about at the beginning, like how it evolved through the months. And I wonder also with you, like as a therapist, how did your feedback with those clients evolve over that time?
Well, and it's also very interesting when you as a therapist are going through a lot of the same things too.
Yeah.
So typically when somebody's coming to me, I'm not going through the exact same thing they're going through.
Right.
But through this process, I was too. So it was very interesting to see this push and pull for me as well, and trying to stay in the middle and bring people back more that way was pretty important for me. I think it was, as this goes on in time, it just keeps getting more and more extreme, and anything in an extreme is not a good idea.
Yeah.
And I think we just kind of shut things off and go on autopilot and just keep doing what feels right. And we aren't aware when it starts to become negative.
Right.
We give ourselves excuses like, well, this is the right thing to do. I should never leave my home because I don't ever want to.
Right.
And then it becomes, it's been 6 months since I've walked outside of my house.
Yes.
And all I ever think about and ever do is COVID.
Yes.
Versus, I don't want to think about this anymore. I'm just done. I'm tired of feeling locked up. I'm just going. I'm out. If I get it, I get it. That was God's will. Well, how do we not do either one of those too intensely? You know, how do we say, okay, let's be healthy, let's be appropriate, let's take care of ourselves and those around us, but let's also not 24 hours a day be terrified of what this virus is.
And so like, okay, so when we were talking earlier and you were describing the behaviors that kind of went along with like an agoraphobic reaction and like the spiraling that you get to where you're shutting down, what does that look? I don't want you to share too much about your clients, but like what behaviors do we need to watch out for that we could be at risk of doing? Like staying home too much, like avoiding people, like I think you talked about people that haven't left their homes at all since March, even to have like the conversation with the neighbor on the driveway, that kind of thing. How else will we know if we're spiraling into that?
I mean, I think that you start to watch certain behaviors you're having, and what I'm seeing a lot with my clients that have become more agoraphobic or more and more extreme is because we start to do these acts to try to ease our mind and it's not working. So everything gets revved up. So maybe it started, I'm not going to go into the stores, and then okay, I don't feel any better. Then it's, I'm not going to leave my house. I don't feel any better. And it just keeps increasing, and that nothing is calming that fear.
Right.
And so it just keeps getting more and more extreme. Like whatever we're doing isn't working. I'm not finding any kind of peace. Like that should tell us we're swinging too far in either direction on the pendulum. And how do we just kind of come more to, okay, this is what I can control today.
Right.
But it's not healthy either if we're getting very depressed and very anxious and can't function in life, even though we're not getting.
And so every time we would try to do a coping skill that maybe had worked for us last year and that doesn't work, then our panic kind of, it's elevated every single time. And so we just lock down a little more. I want to show you guys, this is just funny, but I was like, well, look, I don't know if I've really, have I really experienced a lot of good grounding practices myself during this time. So I wrote a list of everything that I've tried for the last 6 months, and it's this whole list. And actually there's like 5 other papers over here that I'm not going to show you. But what that showed me, and we're having this discussion, is, a lot of the healthy part of this time is that it is forcing us to come face to face with our coping skills, both good and bad. And so for somebody like me that tends to attack problems head on and like, type A and like make my lists and work through them, I realized that even my self-care was another, like not numbing, but some avoidant maybe of just like, I'm going to attack it. I'm going to do all these things. And then I had to back off and just acknowledge that I'm going to be uncomfortable and I'm going to have to sit in that discomfort more than I like. And when I made that recognition or revelation and I accepted that, I just chilled out a lot on some of these more task focused self-care things. And I tried to find, again, that middle way of not making self-care and coping my full-time job. So does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, and I think another thing to keep in mind is anytime something gets too extreme, that's when it becomes unhealthy.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's hard to know when
Right.
that's happening. And so sometimes, ask my clients to think, okay, is this affecting your relationships?
Right.
Is this affecting your work, your school, your education? Is this affecting your health? And if any of those things are being negatively impacted, no matter how good it is, like exercising, we're doing something that is starting to go the other way.
Right.
And we need to just rein it back in. And it doesn't mean to stop everything that we're doing. That's what we want to be careful of, is swinging back and forth, but just taking these baby steps every day to, okay, it is healthy to work out every day, maybe not for 5 hours a day.
Right.
It is healthy to wash our hands, maybe not all day, every day when we've never even left the house.
Right.
These kinds of things. How do we just kind of start to keep that and try? And I find that journaling is a great way to do that. It's been a great way to do that for a lot of my clients of, okay, at the end of the day, I'm just going to look back and see kind of what I've done today, what things helped me feel a little bit better, what didn't, and evaluating. Because when we get it out of our head onto paper, we can see it a lot differently than just living alone up here, especially all the isolating that's occurring.
Yes.
And that we don't know how to balance the idea. And if the people we're speaking to are living in extreme too, how do we know what we should be doing right now?
Right. And the people that would normally be accountability partners for you in that way are also experiencing an imbalance. And so how do we navigate it together? So we talk of journaling is one great way. And I especially like how you said, not just journaling your feelings necessarily, but what are you doing that's working, specifically behaviorally, what is working and what isn't working. And then you can go back and reflect on that. Gratitude journaling is really healthy as well. And then something I do with my kids, and I don't know if this is helpful for people to do in your own practice as well, but at the end of the day, we try to look back on the day and say 3 things that we're grateful for that day, 2 things that we're proud of ourselves that we did that day, and 1 thing we want to do differently the next day. And that helps you put everything in perspective of like gratitude first, then you're proud of your own accomplishments, and then that critical part of your brain that may be taking over right now. But that's a small thing to do in addition to those journals, and that's healthy for the kids as well.
And I think it's important to remember to, if this pandemic has taught us anything, it's taught us how to be present.
Yeah.
And that we have to give ourselves grace every day. Like we did our best to get through today. Tomorrow we're going to wake up and do our best. That's all we can do. We're going to deal with what we have that moment and keep finding things throughout the day to help remind you of that. Like, here I am today. This is what I can control. This is what I can do. I think we don't recognize when we just start going, whether we're task oriented or we're avoiding or we're getting caught in something, any emotion we're getting caught in, we need to try to give ourselves grace and try to pull out of it. Like, of course we feel this way, acknowledge it, validate it, and then what can I do to shift it? And one thing that we talked earlier about this, that I have my clients do throughout the day, set an alarm on your phone, something, and it's the 5 senses. I tell my clients, go outside and close your eyes and breathe for 10 seconds, and then open your eyes and name 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can smell, 2 things you can touch, and 1 thing that you're tasting. So take like a coffee outside or iced tea, something to just like bring all the senses back to right now.
Yeah.
This is all that matters right now in this second.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like just a reset of, if I don't know how to do it, I can do this 1 thing. And so that's a way to just, again, I cannot control anything happening out here. I can't control what anybody's telling me to do. I can't control when my mind and emotions get out of control, but what I can do is control what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm smelling. And it's just another grounding technique that can bring us back to our center.
Yes. And just again, grounding in the moment, in the body. And the serenity meditation that we did is based on, the serenity prayer that is used in AA, which is 1 day at a time, and principles of that. But right now it almost does feel like 1 hour at a time, or one breath at a time. And I think just acknowledging that and allowing ourselves to have that discomfort is so good.
Absolutely.
So what are some other things that people can do that you share with your clients to come back to that middle way? What are some things if someone's avoiding too much, or if they're trying to stay busy and it's in God's hands and, taking no precautions, then how do they need to come back to that middle ground?
I think awareness is really the key to change. So when we can truly start to say, okay, I'm watching my behaviors and seeing where I'm at. And when we catch ourselves in the moment doing something and we start to feel it's a little bit more extreme, how do I pause, take a moment? And I tell them, I love a good phrase, a good mantra that you can just pause and evaluate what it is that you're doing and what's a baby step to do just a little bit less. So I love be still and know that I am God. That's my favorite phrase to do. Like I don't have control over this. I'm reminding myself of that. What was the thing that I just did that made me feel extreme, and how can I just back it off a little bit? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so good. And just checking in, like you said, you could set a timer on your phone and repeat that mantra. You can even name your alarm that mantra. You said that earlier. I thought that was cool. And then I guess I'm thinking also in terms of the research. You said there's not a lot, because the pandemic is only 6 months. We do not have a lot of academic research at this time about the mental health trends. So we're all learning as we go along, and it's so anecdotal. But what are you seeing as the next phase?
I think the most important thing that we've got to keep our mind to is that there's not a perfect here. There's not this like absolute universal right and wrong when it comes to this. And that is what's hard with the research, and everything keeps shifting and changing. And so I think it's about doing our best at every moment and allowing other people to do their best too, and not placing a lot of judgment on why somebody does something, but choosing what is best for us, being very vocal just in our close circle of here's where I'm at and here's why, reaching out to those people that could help us, and vice versa, because we see this, like when we tend to get so isolated, then we're afraid to reach out, or we're so avoidant that we're not acknowledging anything. Right. And so if we can just come to a place of, okay, this is what's currently working for me, here's where I'm at, and not placing judgment on where other people are, but working on coming together to take care of not only our physical health, but our mental health and our emotional health, because we don't know how long this is going to go on. We don't know how to see this end in sight, but what we can do if we don't get that overwhelmed, like don't think 6 months down the road, think through today, through this week. That's what I can do, and I can reach out to people that need to be heard, and I can reach out and say what I need to say, and then just focus on no judgment for ourselves or other people, but just doing the best we can.
Yes. So, okay, let's talk about some of the things that we're seeing otherwise, some tips that we can do.
Yes.
The data is the same in the exercise world right now, because the fitness industry's changed tremendously. It's on its head totally. People aren't going to gyms. Yoga studios are having a challenge right now. The Zoom exercise works really well for people that maybe were intimidated by the fitness world before, but it's killing the extroverts. And so the research in extroversion and introversion with exercise is that you may be an extrovert in your real life, but you like to exercise at home. So you're going to typically do yoga in your house, or weights in your house, or running, some of those solitary sports. But and then vice versa. So right now, what they have found is that people who were really committed before, that had this community of fitness partners, yoga partners, and gym buddies, and they had this healthy practice before the pandemic. Those people have had a really hard time keeping up with their fitness practice. And so those people are experiencing more depression and anxiety than if they'd never had a community to begin with, because they're experiencing loss in addition to not having the physical benefits of exercise. And so I thought that was really interesting. And I am one of those people. I've really had a hard time staying on top of my practice because I so rely on accountability partners and social cues to stick with it. And so some of the things that people have started doing is, if you are in, I mean, exercise really is one of the best ways to make your mood change and to feel in control. But I really caution people against taking on something that's too strict or dogmatic right now, and just making it a very gentle commitment to yourself. So if you were a big high intensity CrossFitter type before, it is okay right now to take a 30-minute walk. If you were somebody that never exercised before and you want to do 5 minutes of yoga, that is exceptional, and you should be so proud that you're making a commitment at all to yourself. So again, finding that middle way. For some people, it's been really healthy to try something completely different than their normal sport. Especially if you were a team sport person, then just going outside and getting on the trails and learning to kayak is a good option. And again, like, the home exercise is great, but for some people it's really challenging to stay in front of a screen. And,
Sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for everybody.
No, it doesn't. But and then we're sitting together now. We have had a group that has done an outside yoga, social distance yoga, in a friend's backyard at their pool. And so, we just have our spots and everybody comes, and that's a wonderful way to have a little bit of that taste of community we used to have. So this is something that I did on my long list of things that I was using to cope, but I found the biggest hill in town that I could find. It's a mile from top to bottom. And it's actually it's off of Dixon. So you go all the way up to Summit. And I would just run that mountain. I'm like, I'm going to climb this mountain. This is hard. This pandemic is going on too long. And my goal was just to be able to run that 1 mile, but it is straight uphill. And it became a really awesome physical meditation for me. And then walk down, park at St. Paul's, and head out. And that's something that you guys could try. I will see you on the mountain. But some other things that Stacey and I talked about were like how you can build some of these grounding techniques into your daily routine that maybe has nothing to do with meditation per se. And maybe it's not an exercise or eating plan or something like that. One thing that you can do is use the shower as a cleansing ritual. Something that most of us do at least once a day. And it really is an opportunity to allow yourself to just wash all of your worries down the drain. And as a thought arises when you're in the shower, you just let it wash off of you. You can even focus on the drain and watch that water spiral away and just let it rinse off of you. That is a really quick and easy way to rinse things away. And I'll probably say it wrong. I think that was a Jesuit practice. And it's definitely something used in a lot of different cultures that we really ignore. Also, brushing your teeth is a good time to reconnect with those things that Stacey was mentioning. It's a 2-minute interval, at least, hopefully, and a chance for you to be mindful just for those 2 minutes, focusing on your feet on the ground and, the things around you. Washing dishes is a Buddhist practice of staying focused and mindful, and feeling the water and feeling the dishes as you're moving them. And then also another Buddhist practice that is something you can do anywhere is the idea of a walking meditation. And we do that really well at St. Paul's with the labyrinth, but you can do it outside barefoot so that you're grounding with your body. And the idea is to walk as though your feet are kissing the ground. So it's a gentle, deliberate movement And it's a way to just interact with your world. And once you do that, and once you kind of get that into your memory, into your muscle memory, then you can do that at the corporate office and at Aldi and at church, or even at home with your kids. If you find yourself becoming too in your head or too nervous and anxious, just come back to that, kissing the ground, even with your shoes on. It's a wonderful way to stay grounded in that way.
And remember to be patient with yourself, because, you know, we've gone a long time without knowing these skills. We're trying to develop new skills. So just the smallest of baby steps is what really creates change. Like, not these big, huge changes that doesn't last. What we are looking for is lasting change. And this is something that I feel like that we can take from this pandemic and this time is I'm learning how, when anything feels out of control for me, I can use these skills. These are very easy to do once you start developing them. So be patient. Baby steps is the biggest thing to remember right now, I think.
Everything. Especially, and I love that because we had talked earlier about, so this is a time with people that have disordered eating or disordered fitness habits are really struggling. And a lot of times people that have a plan to, you know, I'm going to get healthy, I'm going to change my diet, that can become really unhealthy. It can turn into orthorexia. And this is a time when those people can hide. And I would love for you to share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I do a lot of work with eating disorders. It's a passion of mine, and I have a lot of clients that struggle with different disordered eatings and things. And one of the things I've seen a lot with my clients that struggle with anorexia, this is a way that they got to justify it, and nobody could see it, and I couldn't see it, and they could get on, because I'm doing mostly telehealth. I have had some outdoor sessions, but I'm not in my office right now. And so it can be hidden, and it's a way that they can give into, because a lot of times too, that is their coping skill. Controlling what they eat and restricting is how they cope with anxiety and depression. And so they get to use this coping skill with nobody checking in on them. So that I've seen a lot of those patterns of, okay, so how do we do this now that you could go in this direction if you wanted to? And how do we try to just, again, rein it in a little bit? How does this come more inside of you? And let's find other coping skills and not fall back on this one, because it could get pretty scary pretty quickly.
So what would be a couple of those baby steps to help those people?
So a couple of those is when you start to see, and you know, it depends on where my clients have been at and as far as their road to recovery through this eating disorder. But it would be, okay, I'm starting to count calories again. Okay, how do I shift it to, I'm going to eat things with color? And like different nutritionists have different ideas like that, what they're doing. But I just work with them on, okay, what other things help you feel in control besides controlling your food? I do more of that. And they work with their dietitian and their nutritionist on the other, like, actual food intake. But okay, what else can make you feel in control of something? And so that would be a lot of the things you just talked about, different grounding skills, different, okay, here's how I'm going to be accountable to one person. I'm not going to hide in my house. I'm going to sit outside at least 6 feet away, but I'm going to be around people. And I'm not going to hide from everything, because I know that that's getting into my disordered eating and things like that. Just taking one step. I'm going to see one friend this week. I'm going to make one phone call and be honest about where I'm at with food. I'm not going to hide from it. That kind of stuff. Like those are what I mean by baby steps. Pick up the phone, plan something with a friend that's healthy, journal about anything that could make me feel in control besides controlling my food intake, that kind of stuff.
I love it. I love all that. So good. Well, let's see, what else do we want to cover? I think in terms of, I mean, you know, vitamins and things like that. There are things that you can control that are nutrients that aren't going to be food, and magnesium, St. John's wort, but those kinds of things can be helpful. Vitamin D, this is a great time. For me, coming back to this time of year and having school start was really challenging, because we were able to spend so much time outside during the summer. And now that our lives have gone back to somewhat of a normal schedule, it is I'm nervous about the fall.
Sure.
And about like,
Sure.
how are we going to work as a community and as a church, and how can we stay positive during this time?
Sure. And one of my favorite phrases to tell clients is run the experiment.
Yeah.
Like, we just have to get creative.
It's an
We have to try it. It's an experiment. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to go perfectly.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen if we do it, but we just see. We try different things until we find what works for us.
Yeah.
So
That's such a good thing, run the experiment.
run the experiment.
Well, we have a couple of things that we wanted to add additionally that are, we talked about mental health and physical health, but we wanted to share some things with you too that are specific to St. Paul's and to the Episcopal tradition. But did you want to add anything else before we do?
So I could be forgetting something. We were all over the place.
We're just talking, and then we would love to hear if you guys have questions. I think there's a Q&A box from your side too. So just a couple of things. As a grounding practice, this is one thing that I've tried this year. This is the Anglican Rosary. You can get one of these in the bookstore. Susan Hayes was my contact for this, and it's olive wood. And just similar to a Catholic Rosary, you have prayers for each bead. And this is something that I found really useful when I realized I was ruminating about school and my kids, and my son is high risk. And so what was going to happen to him? And so after a couple of months of that, I had to train my ruminating thoughts elsewhere. And so this is really helpful for that because it's repetitive. So you are holding it, you're praying at each bead, and then slowly you're training your mind to just find that calm. And so I do this, I try to do it every day. I definitely do it on Sundays. It has helped so much since we're not doing Eucharist for me to have some other ritual. And this has been a wonderful tool. And then I've found that when I do slip into that rumination, that I could just start, even if I'm not holding the rosary, start going back into those repetitive prayers and immediately snap out of it. That's been one thing that has worked really well. And then centering prayer. Do you want to talk about centering prayer? It's the same thing Stacey was saying with the mantra, and it's just a 20-minute meditation, basically, where you're repeating that mantra. And
where's the prayer that you wrote down? It was a great one. Yes, I love this one. It's the prayers for, do you want to read this?
Yeah, sure. So this is in the prayer book. This is shared with me. My brother is a priest, and this is one that he wakes up and says every morning. And it's been really helpful during the pandemic. It's prayers for use by a sick person, but it applies to everyone. This is another day, O Lord. I know not what it will bring forth, but make me ready, Lord, for whatever it may be. If I am to stand up, help me to stand bravely. If I am to sit still, help me to sit quietly. If I am to lie low, help me do it patiently. And if I am to do nothing, let me do it gallantly. Make these words more than words and give me the Spirit of Jesus. Amen. So I think that's page 891, but that's in the prayer book, and you can find it online. And then a morning resolve is another one. And if you don't mind, I'll read that to you as well. This one talks a little bit about these practical habits, and that's why this one is so wonderful as well. Do you want to read that one?
Sure. Okay. I will try this day to live a simple, sincere, and
My handwriting.
I know it's
serene.
Okay, that's what I thought. Repelling roughly every thought of discontent, anxiety, discouragement, impurity, and self-seeking, cultivating cheerfulness, charity, magnanimity, charity, and the habit of holy silence, exercising economy in expenditure, generosity in giving, carefulness in conversation, diligence in appointed service, fidelity to every trust, and a childlike faith in God. In particular, I will try to be faithful in those habits of prayer, work, study, physical exercise, eating, and sleep, which I believe the Holy Spirit has shown me to be right.
Yeah. So that is what we wanted to share with you today. And we have a little time. If you guys have questions, Emma's going to read them to us and we will answer them. So we'll open that up. And I'm going to text Emma and see if she has.
I'm here. Hi. Can y'all hear me? Hi. There was a comment on the YouTube page about being in isolation and just offering up that taking an online class has been helpful. So kind of engaging like the intellectual and mind portion of life. I don't know if y'all wanted to speak to that a little bit more. And then I have one other question.
And somebody just texted me on my phone, so I have one too.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, I think that absolutely is a wonderful idea. Just starting any kind of new habit or skill, taking a new class, learning a new musical instrument, just engaging in, taking an art class, engaging in anything that again is kind of neutral.
Yeah.
It's not anything big going on in the world right now, but just something to create value, to use as a distraction, but in a healthy way of this is how I can focus and develop a new skill while I'm at home trying to figure all of this out. That's a wonderful point and idea. I love that.
And what about something small versus like a big life change? Like I know a lot of initially people were saying like, oh, it's a great time for me to resign or go back to school or, make those big changes. Do you think this is?
I'd be careful to make any huge life change in the middle of a crisis because it's hard to trust with what emotion we're feeling, at any given moment. But if you find yourself in it, something that like going back to school or doing something like that and it's working for you, that's amazing. But I also just think that making some small step makes more sense and that could lead in a different direction. Like I take one class and see what that feels like. And then that might lead me to developing a new career path.
Yeah.
But starting small and doing and learning about new things. And even if it's like, I'm going to try a new recipe and I'm going to cook this at home, I'm going to just expand on different things like that.
Yeah.
It's good.
Really good. What else, Emma?
I have a question about if you all wanted to speak a little bit to families who have youth or kids of all ages, little to big, how they can kind of be a support specifically to their kids while also taking care of themselves.
Oh, that's such a good question. Taking care of your kids while taking care of yourselves. I think it's what you said. I think we're running the experiment. And at this point, 6 months in, I have wondered so often, like, what are we doing to this generation of kids and what, like long term, how are their social interactions going to change? But they are really adapting. And I think the more we can take care, I think it's our job as parents to take care of ourselves first and model a calm, capable, honest model for the kids. And if we're struggling, to just name that for the kids and say, I'm struggling with this as well. And this is what I'm doing to work on it. And you can help me be my accountability partner. And then how can I help you? I think that's our job. But it is hard, and it's really easy to be told to stay home and to stay locked down. But if you've got kids everywhere and they're missing their social lives, it's a really hard thing to do. So I think finding a balance for ourselves and for them is our best plan. Mine are complete opposites, and one is now somewhat agoraphobic. And so really concerned about getting COVID and bringing it home and sharing it with the family and maybe killing a family member. That's a fear that we've had to talk about in my own home. And for that one, I encouraged that child to have more Zoom play dates, and we were having a pen pal and we're writing letters and we're saying prayers. And then also I'm taking that child into the grocery store with me in a mask, but like that one needs to come and have more social interaction.
Sure.
What do you think? Am I doing that right?
I think you're good. I do think one of the most important thing as parents that we have to remember is our kids are always watching us. I have a daughter as well. And if they see us, I love what you said, like we're modeling behavior.
Yeah.
And I think being honest, like, you know what, I'm kind of scared too, but here's how I'm going to work on this. And here's what I'm doing to feel better.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of different techniques that you can look. There's kids meditations that if you want to get on podcast, there's different ways to look up things for anxiety for children. And if you see it outside the realm of what feels quote unquote normal, I highly encourage seeking out a play therapist for younger kids and just somebody, and a lot of it is on Zoom or different things like that, but they need to have a safe place to talk as well. And that's a great resource right now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of excellent child therapists out there. Obviously, I'm going to recommend that. But
we have several in the church.
we have several in the church. And I think, kids learn a lot through play and through doing and through interacting and through watching us. And again, if we can learn how to control our emotions or just take steps and not be dishonest with them.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, I'm worried about this too, but here's what I'm doing to work on that. Here's what I'm doing to help that. And we're here for each other and we're learning about this. And again, when you see your kids going to extreme, if it feels too extreme, seek out professional help. If it feels just like, okay, how do I work with this? Talk to them about running the experiment. Let's try some different things. What helps you feel safe? What helps you feel grounded? And they've got yoga classes for kids that helps them. It just puts it on a more child level.
So as you're talking, I was thinking of here's one tool that you can use. It is a child's meditation tool. So you lie flat and put a small rubber duck on the chest and on the belly. And then you let the child rest with the eyes open and make the ducks swim by moving your breath. So you inhale and expand the chest and the duck lifts. And then as you exhale, belly comes up and duck lifts. And so you make that movement back and forth. That's a really
wonderful.
short, and I mean, you can do it for 2 minutes, whatever. You'll see when the child's calm, and it's an easy thing to do. It's kind of fun. And I think that would work even into teens. So we got a question. And thank you for texting us this. You know who you are. How do you feel sadness when there's a lot of it, but you're afraid if you go there and really feel it, you're not coming back? I love that question.
That is an excellent question. What comes to mind when I think about that is honoring and validating an emotion, but not getting stuck in it. There was a meditation I remember doing, and I don't want to mess this up, but it's been a while, but it was basically, we're sitting by a river and we're watching things and leaves falling into the river and like taking each leaf like it is an emotion, and we're watching it come. We're seeing it as it's here. We're watching it leave. What we don't want to do is jump into the river and hold on to the leaf, right? And that's what you're talking about when you say, how do I not get stuck in sadness?
Yeah.
Well, I think avoiding sadness is what can kind of create it bigger too. And I love this question because it shows the difference of getting stuck in an emotion and acting like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So trying those different things of honoring, of course I'm sad, validating it. Why wouldn't I be sad? Okay, what are some different things to do that help me feel happy? Making a list of, here's the things that I can't control that are good.
Mhm.
And here's the things that still bring me joy. Watching a funny movie, listening to music, going outside, talking to a safe friend, all those small things. And then again, if it gets too far outside and you're feeling more paralyzed and you feel like you are getting stuck in it, seek out some professional help.
Mhm.
That's fair too. Like, I'm giving into this and I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've tried all these things and they're not working.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Right.
To try to help do that and try to give you ideas of things you haven't thought of before.
Mm-hmm.
But don't be afraid to feel thinking you can't get out, because avoiding it is what makes the emotion bigger and bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden it's so big that we don't know what to do. But if we acknowledge it right away and deal with it, it's not as intense.
And so each time you would come into that fear of like, oh, I don't want to be, if I allow myself to be sad, it's going to take me, you stop yourself and you imagine that floating. by, and you just take a step back.
And set a timer. I'm going to allow myself to be sad for 5 minutes. I mean, it sounds funny, but it can really work. Like, I have 5 minutes to be as sad as I want to be. I can cry, I can be. And then when that timer goes off, I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
And it just kind of shakes us out of it. And then we can do the different meditations we're talking about grounding, but it's okay to feel it intensely for a moment, because there is a lot of sadness, both just what we're struggling with and then what we see in the world. It's real.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we honor it, validate it, and move through it? I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Let me see if I have any more. Oh, I got another one.
Okay.
How do we protect ourselves from the constant barrage of political division? Oh, I love this one too.
Yeah.
I am concerned for our country and fearful. It's a great question.
And also very valid.
Yes. There's more coming on that question. I feel like I must watch minimal news just to be informed. And I think that's
fair. And I think when you start to, this is another good example of like, let's not stay stuck in it all day long. So let's not leave the news on all day. You know, set aside a time to catch up. That's fair. Like, I want to know what's happening in the world, but I've got to be careful about constantly thinking about it because I can't make change in that way either. Right. So setting aside a time, whether it's in the morning or in the evening or whatever, and like, again, I'm only going to allow myself this hour to catch up or this article. And then I have to go do something else because I'm not doing anybody any good. Getting obsessed about this, right? And then I think taking any type of action, it's getting the anxiety out of our body. We don't want it trapped. And it feels trapped when we start to obsess, right? So if it's, I can do this one thing, like I can write postcards, and I love writing. That's why I'm always going to go back to that. Like, I don't want to make phone calls. That feels uncomfortable.
And writing with a pen.
But writing with a pen with your own motion and handwriting is removing it from your body. So this is one thing I can do. I cannot do anything about what the world is doing right now in their belief system and how polarized we're getting and how angry and hateful we're getting. It is very upsetting. And so validate that. But now I will control what I can control. And I will go support this thing. And I will go write these cards. And I will look and see if there's anything I can do in my community. I can put signs up. I can just, any action I can take to try to remove it from inside of me is the way to kind of stay grounded on that. And it's just a small thing, but it can really make a big difference.
And this person says, thank you. So, yeah, and that applies all the time. Like you said, these are tools we can take. I mean, our political division isn't going away when the pandemic goes away. We need to be equipped for the upcoming conversations, and we need to be able to act when the time is right. And if we have overwhelmed ourselves to the point of being paralyzed, we can't help whatever cause needs our help.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you.
Sure.
What else, Emma?
That's all from questions and incoming things, and we're at about time. So we just want to thank you all for sharing and being a part of this conversation. I don't know if you have any concluding thoughts you'd like to throw in before we end.
I mean, I just think let's go back to having grace and running experiments and small baby steps like that. If I could wrap it up in any way, that's what I want people to remember. Like, be kind to yourself, be kind to those around us. This is new. We're not exactly sure the best way to do this. So we're going to keep running experiments till we find what works for us and hopefully what can work for our family members and our loved ones, and how we can just kind of take this, like you said, and make it a permanent change. Like, this is what I do when I get anxious, just outside of anything happening in my life that isn't as collective. Right now, we're just in the collective, so we're learning a big lesson.
Oh, yeah.
But we can take this with us to grow and evolve in the best way that we can. People.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I don't want to add anything. I just wish you all the best. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to close with just a quick blessing if you want to close your eyes. This is how I end all of my yoga classes. So spoiler alert if you come to my classes. But I just want to say thank you all for coming and sharing your practice with me and with each other. And may you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you be at ease. Amen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Bye.
Bye.